This is the Heroic Voice, where I talk to comic book creators, people I've worked with, other interesting people, about the history of comics, superheroes, and the current state of the comic book industry. I also discuss current and upcoming projects, current events, and any other topics my guests might be interested in talking about. So subscribe and hit the like button. Help me grow this channel and promote indie comic book creators, publishers, and other people affiliated with the comic book industry. Your comments are appreciated. Get to it and leave feedback, good, bad, and otherwise. I am your host, Dennis Maloney, writer, publisher of the Heroic Multiverse, where we spotlight good girls, bad girls, super babes, and superheroics in a classic, kind of golden agey style. Grab some snacks and enjoy. This is the Heroic Voice. Hi, welcome to the Heroic Voice. I'm here with John Cimino. It is March 30th. It's almost the end of March. Spring has sprung. We're into spring. Hooray. John, it's a pleasure to see you. What I'd like to do, because you mentioned when we first talked about the idea of doing an interview with you that there was some controversy, and I didn't know anything about it. I gather from what you told me that it has something to do with Wolverine and it has something to do with Stan. So let's get into it so people understand what's going on and why there are some people out there throwing brickbats at you.
Well, first off, thank you for having me, Dennis. I'd like to say it's an honor being on this and being in this industry. And I think the first thing about I get a little bit of controversy is because I'm actually pretty successful, and I'm very and I have a big mouth. Let's just say I'm a guy from Boston that I don't shy away from controversy. If somebody says something about me, I got to come back and retaliate and say something about them. But then I realized on the internet, it doesn't really matter because you say something to one person and it just inspires a lot of these other people to come and attack. And so so basically I never I don't read comments anymore. I don't do anything like that. But I've always been like, I would say a little bit controversial because once again I got pretty successful and a lot of the people I associate with I'm good friends with, best friends with, and I love dearly. I have a lot of friends in this industry, pretty big names, as you know, Roy Thomas, Gerry Conway, and now John Bolerjack, who's also putting out that Stan Lee biography that he's getting a little bit of he's getting a little heat now because a lot of people don't understand. They think that he is trying to make money off Stan because he has all this hidden footage that they think that because he's putting out this biography about what was going on behind the scenes in the last few years of Stan's life.
Yeah, there's a lot of story there. It's story that should be told.
It's beautiful. But the thing is, first off, I knew about this years ago. And I knew when he was making this, and I helped him out with whatever I could. But John is an absolute genius. He knows what he's doing. But the thing is that people don't know what he has done. Like people will say, like, oh, why didn't you just take this footage and go to the internet, go to the cops and all this stuff first? And now they're condemning him without ever even seeing the film, because now John is doing a little bit of damage control because one of the biggest podcasts in the country, a guy that has like 16 million followers and all that stuff, he had his own decision of what he thought the John was and what he thought the documentary was, all based on the trailer, and he misjudged everybody, and then he got attacked, and this kind of went viral and all that stuff. So John's now doing damage control. He's going around the internet. He was on my podcast. He was on a bunch of other podcasts, and he was trying to say exactly what happened, because you can't say everything on a little 3-minute trailer.
Maybe you should pass along an invitation to be on the Heroic Voice to him. I'd love to have him.
Yeah, sure. I'll talk to him because now he's going on every like all the podcasts he can and talking about this. And it's a fascinating story. But I'll tell you this right now, and I'm going to just say this without a shadow of a doubt. I've known John for many years, and I first met him when we got Roy and Stan together, and we got that last photo of Stan Lee and Roy. And I happened to be in the absolute last photo before Stan passed away. But it was me and John that got them together. And from there on, we became friends. And what was interesting, what I loved about John is that he's a stand-up guy. He didn't go where the money was and all this stuff. And this is why we related, because a little while later, I asked him, because I started knowing this industry, and I said, are we the two most honest people in this industry? Because there's a lot of shysters out here, and it's kind of hard to deal with, because when you deal with shady promoters, shady agents, shady creators, it can get pretty.
Yeah.
The good people start narrowing down and all that stuff.
Well, I will say that, the shady people was something that Stan had a problem with in the last few years of his life.
Well, Stan's problem was this. This is what Stan's problem, and Roy told me this, and it makes a lot of sense that if you could do the job, Stan would just take you with him. You could meet him in a store and talk to him, and all of a sudden he needs you for something, and you look like the right guy. He'd take you without vetting you or anything. And so what would happen? You'd just be part of the entourage. And what happened, being that way, kind of made him susceptible to bad people.
Yes,
And these guys have incredible targets on their back. And I'll tell you this without a doubt, because once he died, I said to Roy, I'm going to watch out for you even harder than I ever have, because more people are going to start aiming their spears and all that stuff, or their whatever they want, to Roy. And they have.
They have.
And see, and once again, you got that, like Stan, Roy, they come from that generation where they're just making this magic. They don't understand, like, how much it impacted people like us that, like, that are going to do anything for them or anything to get their attention. And then you got people like will want them to sign something, and then they don't want them to they don't want to give to the Hero Initiative, or they don't want to give a penny and all that stuff to see. Roy is very, very he's awesome in the sense that we don't charge for autographs. Basically, we have people come for 10 at the most, and then if they got more than that, they go to the end of the line and they come back, but they have to donate to the Hero Initiative. Other things, if they want signed and all that stuff, like sometimes there's little added incentives because they want him to write a quote or whatever it may be. But comic books, trade paperbacks, omnibuses, magazines, those are all, Roy doesn't even charge a dime. Those are just donations to the Hero Initiative. That's how awesome
Roy's not all that interested in money. I think he's quite comfortable, right?
He don't need money, believe me.
Yeah,
he doesn't. He listen, I'm going to be honest with you. He made me. I'm a Hispanic guy from Dorchester, Boston, and I'm from the projects. And I'll tell you this. I do very well in life, thanks to Roy and all that stuff. So I'm able to do things I never thought I could. But I'll tell you, it's those guys like Stan, Gerry. They do it for the love of. They love this, because look, Roy is like in Stan's shoes. He doesn't have to be out here. He doesn't need money and all that stuff. He loves to be out there. He loves to be with the fans, and he loves to celebrate this industry. But he needs to be compensated because of who he is. We're like, that's what I'm saying. It's like he has earned that right to have that. So we're not cheap. We go all over the world. He's wanted all over the world, second to nobody. And that demand for him is incredible. But like I said, he's not cheap. I mean, he's deserved his place at the head of the table now. And he's earned that right. 60 years in comics, creating these crazy characters, making these stories that made us all happy and inspired the world. I mean, he deserves that. So don't get me wrong. We are a business, but he's also here for the love of. And that's Absolutely. What I love of him.
Now, explain to me, and explain for the benefit of people watching this, what exactly that it is you do for Roy Thomas and Gerry Conway.
Oh, basically, I'm their buddy. I first off, I've been friends with Roy for over 10 years. He is my best friend in the whole world. Me and him we have been through thick and thin. And like, Roy is legit my best friend. we go out, we have good time, we go to dinner, all this stuff. He's everything like that. But the truth is, what I do for business is, when I started in this business, I started writing. I was first a comic dealer. I was a traveling comic dealer and all that stuff. Then I got to write for Tomorrow's Publishing. I got a bunch of, I submitted a bunch of work, and eventually they came a call, and I've written Back Issue, Jack Kirby Collector, Jack Kirby Collector, Retro Fan, and now I write consistently for Alter Ego and all that stuff. So that's what and then I moved on from being a dealer. Then I started becoming an agent. The first person I ever worked with, two people. One was Neil Adams, which was great because he needed somebody, and I tried to help from a partner of mine that I knew, and he was a promoter, and he had Neil Adams, and he said, "Hey, Neil Adams needs somebody, and I know you're perfect for the job." So anyways, I'm competent. I know that. I started helping him out at his table, and then I helped out Paul Kupperberg, and then I started building up. Then I started thinking like, oh, let me see what I can do. And as I wrote for these magazines, I had a lot of emails and all that stuff, and Roy liked my work. And then finally a promoter came up to me and he goes, "Hey, Roy Thomas?" He goes, "You think you could come to my show?" So I asked Roy. He trusted me. We had a lot of correspondence. I bring him to a show. He made an incredible amount of money. And then he looks at me, he goes, "You think we can do this again?" Yeah. And I go, "Absolutely." And from there on, the universe has opened itself up to me. But the thing is, I have a great awareness of this business because I've been a comic fan since I was 3. And the thing is, I knew Roy was going to start hitting because Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, Ditko, all those heroes started hitting. Those were the first heroes. The movies start coming out and all that. And I knew Roy was the second wave guy with a bunch of characters that are going to start hitting the mainstream. And sure enough, as I was kind of bringing Roy up, we hit it, and boom, it exploded because all his characters started coming out. And then that just made everything better. And what I did, Roy Thomas, this was Roy's mistake. Roy is a genius, right? He's a genius writer. He doesn't know much about promoting and all that stuff. The thing I love about Roy, he's such 100% honest guy, and he's incredibly loyal. So he always loved to give people their credit. That's why he always went to bat for the golden age artists and all that stuff. That's why Alter Ego was all to give props to them. But he always forgot about himself. He was so modest. And I'm sure you know that.
I know that. The Wolverine situation is a classic example of that, right? I know Wolverine was Roy's idea.
Oh my God. I mean, but the funny thing is, this is the craziest thing is, the first time you ever see that in print back in 1982, like of anything about the creation of Wolverine, they're talking to Roy and he's saying the same thing he said for the last 50 years. And not just that, you got John Romita saying the same thing, video footage of Herb Trimpe saying the exact same thing. He's telling you that it was Roy's character, not anybody else's, and he gives it to John Romita. This is Herb Trimpe. And then even Len on occasionally saying the same thing. But how do you dispute that? And here's a funny thing. The great thing that I love that the artist Joe Rubinstein said, he posted up this. He goes, "I don't know what all the commotion is." He goes, "But I'll just tell you this. Herb Trimpe told me himself that Wolverine is Roy Thomas's characters and no one else's." This is word for word. So anyways, all this documented history, but as you know, the internet is not interested in documented history. They're only interested in what happens today. They don't care what happened 10 years ago, 5 years ago. I've seen so many podcasts trashing me and Roy, saying there is no history available of Roy ever saying anything. And I'm like, and people believe this. As you know, today, people like this, they forget on a dime. I'm sure you know this. This is the way the world works today. And if it doesn't happen like this second, it never existed. All people have to do, because they're so lazy and arrogant, all they have to do is go back in time, and all this stuff is there. Hell, I interviewed Roy in 2014 and Len Wein together for a back issue article on Wolverine, and I didn't even know Roy then. This is just all correspondence. Roy tells me the exact same thing. Len gives me his say, and that's it. No, Len Wein wasn't complaining what Roy Thomas said, and he said all the same thing. But yet, that doesn't matter. There's footage of Roy in 2013 at a convention talking about the creation of Wolverine at a panel. Nobody cares about that. Like I said, there's many documented articles of Herb Trimpe saying the same thing. Read an issue of Alter Ego. I can give you the issues. I have it all there. And people just don't want to hear it. They want to believe what they want to believe. And
well,
I'll tell you something.
Len some credit, right? Roy created the character, but Len developed the character, right?
Yeah, yes, it went to Roy, then it went to John, then it went to Herb and Len. Yes, they all are the co-creators of Wolverine. Roy always advocated for Herb Trimpe. I don't know if you know that, because for a long time they never even considered Herb, because he just drew the character in the comic, and he took the actual sketch and he put that on in the last panel of 180. And then what happens is Roy always advocated for Herb, always thought he should be all four of them were co-creators. But then you have a lot of, I can't mention names and all that stuff, but a lot of people, they had other agendas. And I can't tell you this because I can't say this publicly, but let's just say there's a lot of bad apples with a lot of bad intentions. And I can't, once again, I know what's going on in the facts, and these other people know the truth too, but Roy was always going to get that co-creatorship because Marvel always, will always honor him.
Marvel's good about that.
Yeah, and they know his contributions and all that. That was never going to end. But there's bad apples out there, and that have had a big voice against this. And if you know what goes on behind the scenes like I do, I know what their real intentions are, and they're not good. And let's just say it isn't about the copyright. It isn't about like Roy getting his co-creatorship and all that stuff. There's a lot more involved to that. And so I can't say much on that, but let's just say Roy's a good egg in this egg. He deserved that.
And Gerry Conway's always been a good egg too. Yeah.
Gerry, I love Gerry. I don't know if anybody knows this, but about 2 years ago, Gerry had a lot of problems and he had cancer. And it's been public and all that stuff. And what happened was we almost lost Gerry. But as he came back, he came to what he wanted. He contacts Roy, and he knows that I'm kind of an enthusiastic guy. I love the industry. I bring life to them. And he asked Roy if would he mind if I could take over for him and then and help him and all that stuff. And Roy said, you have my blessing. So he calls me up and he said, I'd love to do work with you. And I said, Gerry, I would love to help you out and all that stuff. Unfortunately with Gerry, the will is not as good as the body, because he is breaking down. He's a lot more delicate. He's dying to go out there. We went to MegaCon. We did MegaCon. He was so well received. It was awesome to see. And just unfortunately, we were supposed to go in December to Brazil, but he fractured his left hip. And then we were supposed to go to Boxborough. We just had the Boxborough show just a few weeks ago, and in Massachusetts, and it was incredible. Roy had the biggest line in the history of the show. It was unbelievable, but Gerry couldn't make it because he broke his other hip. And so, goodness. Yeah, so I mean, it's just unfortunate and then Gerry contacts me. He's like, when can we do another show? And I said, Gerry, just heal. Just heal. Just heal. I know
Gerry.
Yeah, he's got that drive, like I said, but unfortunately the body is not as strong as his will. But I'll just tell fans out there, they should know that Gerry Conway, if you see him at a show, I mean, that guy loves his fans and he's doing his best to try to be out there. And once again, when you beat death, you have this renewed vigor, and he kind of appreciated it. And what I loved is I got the boys back together, Roy and Gerry and all that stuff. And I loved that. And I had a lot of shows set up with them, but hopefully after Gerry heals, we're going to try to get him out there.
Well, I'd love to see him out there again. I mean, Gerry, for all his talent, doesn't get the credit that he deserves, I think. He was extremely creative, extremely talented.
Oh my! Do you know how young he was when he's writing all those Spider-Man stories? And I asked him, 18 too. He was like, he started at 18, and I asked him, how the hell are you writing all that teen angst and you haven't even lived long enough to end? He's just going, I just kind of wrote what I know. And that is unbelievable. And what I love about Gerry and Roy, Roy always gave him all the hand-me-downs. Everything Stan threw at Roy, and Roy didn't want it. He threw it at Gerry.
It's true.
So
it's true.
it was like the three of them. He goes, whatever Roy didn't want, it got thrown at him. Because Roy didn't want to write Spider-Man, so he threw it at Gerry. Roy didn't want to do this one, he threw it at Gerry. So I'll always ask, how did you get to write that? Roy didn't want it. He threw it at me. It's phenomenal. And what is the greatest part of my job is I've driven so many lengths with these guys. I'm talking hours on the road and all that stuff. And the stories are unbelievable. And I love hearing Roy and Gerry's versions of stories of people and all that stuff. That's the greatest part of my job. That hearing those stories directly from them, things I can't say to anybody, or I got to keep my mouth shut about. But the other thing is, the greatest part of my job is when fans come up to them and they tell them how they changed their whole lives. That is such an incredible thing when you see a cop, a priest. How about this one? When we were in Brazil, Roy had to put his blessing on a freaking couple that was getting married and all that stuff. They would say they proposed to each other and they wanted Roy to bless them. It was fantastic.
Goodness, that's wonderful.
But that stuff, that is incredible. I love that because I get to see that because I'm a fan. I don't care what anybody says. They can say I'm this money hungry, blah, 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 blah. I'm a protector of these guys, and I love what they do, and I love the fans, and I love when they give them their adulation. That's all I do is I want them to get the respect they deserve.
Well, here's a question for you. And I've talked to Roy about this in the past. Do you look outside the comic book industry? Do you have any expertise in other media that you could make arrangements for them for?
Yeah, well, I don't know if you saw that Roy had his cameo in Daredevil and all that stuff. That started with that. And it was season 3.
I'm thinking more of because Roy has always been proud of the fact that we had Captain Thunder and Blue Bolt optioned for a while, right? Do you go into that area looking for that kind of thing for Roy or for Gerry?
To sell those IPs? Sell them?
Okay. Well, not sell them, to make them available in other media.
To get movies made or video games made and all that. To tell you the truth, I really haven't done that because my expertise is in the conventions, is within. This
is why I ask, because it's clear that you know what's going on in the convention world. So I was wondering, if you had any contacts outside of the comic book industry.
Well, I have dealt with that crowd, let's just say, and I'm not really fond of them. I just say, when you deal with outside of the realm of conventions and comic books and stuff, like private signings and all that stuff, I'm not a big fan of that because those type of people, you got to have I've talked to some directors. I've been on the phone for many hours with, I can't mention any names, with some big time names and movies that are coming out now that, let's just say they don't see eye to eye and they don't give the respect a lot of those creators are and I don't have the personality to kind of smile and smooth that over because that's not what I'm about.
I agree with you. I've had contact and it's not a fun experience dealing with
not at all
mentality that Hollywood has.
Right. And I'm a guy that protects these guys, and I want them to believe me. I do not take kindly when anyone disrespects these guys because I don't keep my mouth shut, and I make sure that they know who they're talking to and all that stuff and who these guys are. I mean, this industry is built on their backs. And so when you have to deal, as you said, you've dealt with some of them, and I've dealt with a lot of those guys, they have their own egos and they think they could take these IPs and they want their ideas all over it. And they're going to say, this is why nothing works. Because as you can see, if you got like a Superman, he's been around for like 100 years, just write a Superman the way he's supposed to be, because that's who, but you got these people with their egos and they always want to put their spin on it.
Let me give you an example that comes to mind of this that really ticked me off when I saw it. Roy created the Werewolf by Night concept, right? Yep. The whole thing, the kid who's a werewolf, the kid who has a sister who might someday become a werewolf, a suspicious, stepfather who actually turns out to be his uncle in the end, right? The whole Werewolf by Night storyline was Roy's idea, right? And then I saw the Marvel Studios Werewolf by Night story that had absolutely nothing to do with any of that they called Werewolf by Night. So I'm sitting here thinking, why did they not just tell the Werewolf by Night story, right? Instead of doing what they did, which was basically the Ulysses Bloodstone story, with
Right.
monster hunters.
And
And this is what bothers me, because had they done the Werewolf by Night storyline as a series, the way Roy did it, they would have had something good, right? But that Hollywood mindset, right? They don't think in those terms.
No, they don't. And plus, if you saw, what's the name of werewolf when he's a human? What's the name of him?
Jack Russell.
Yeah, Jack Russell.
Which is a joke, right?
That was named by, I think Gerry named him too, Jack Russell. But I'll tell you this. Do you notice that the new Werewolf by Night was Hispanic, right? But so the big battle there was, are they going to make it the Hispanic version or the original version? Notice that they kind of compromised with having the Spanish guy, but they actually used the Jack Russell name and all that. So I don't know if you recognize that.
No, I don't pay any attention to that. I just was wondering why they didn't tell a good story.
Well, that's the point. That's the point. The point is there's a lot of other things that don't matter to the story if you just write a good story and kind of use the regular origin and just kind of maybe shape it to the 25-30 minutes you have. That's all you need. But I'm just saying there's all these other factors that have to get involved in all that stuff to try to make that. You're saying like, yeah, the Bloodstone and all that stuff. Me and Roy saw that together. We were watching that, and I'm always looking at Roy to see what he thinks. He did enjoy it, and he liked how the man thing was in it too. And Gerry too, because they were co-creators too. Gerry was a co-creator for both those characters with Roy. But believe me, there's so much of. And now look at a lot of these movies coming. They're not doing well, right?
Yeah,
they're not doing well
because they're not telling a story.
And they're not. Why can't you recast Captain America? Nobody wants it. The Falcon was a great character. Leave him as the Falcon. Anthony Mackie. He doesn't need to be Captain America. That isn't going to work, and it's not.
Yeah, it doesn't. So, well, let's talk about you, right? You talked briefly about yourself, how you got into it writing, for the fan magazines, right? You still do that, I assume.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I obviously I write more for Alter Ego now, but I loved writing for Back Issue. I love Michael Urie. He was the one who hired me. He hired me in 2013. And that was my first article was the complete Superman versus Shazam history, and 9 pages, all color, all we worked. I mean, it was amazing. I will always give Michael Urie will always have a place in my heart because he hired me and made me realize that dreams are possible. I was a teacher assistant, and I was in this job that I was just dying. And when I got that, when Michael Urie hired me for that, it was such an incredible moment in my life that it made me think that all things were possible. So from that, I got all those emails, and then from that led me to Roy, and it just happened really quick. And then I've been such a part of this industry now. I'm very well known, and I have a lot of friends in high places and stuff. But yeah, the thing about me is I'm just a fan, and I get a lot of pushback because I'm the guy they got to deal with that gets to Roy Thomas. I'm the guy you got to deal with to get to Gerry or to this guy. And why do they want to deal with me? Oh, you got to pay for that. Oh, you're the guy you got to deal with. There's that. And then there's the fact that I'm out there a lot. I do a podcast with on the Pop XP with Steve says the Steven Cimino Says Boom podcast with Steve Houston from Torpedo Comics. He's on Pawn Stars and all that stuff. We're one of my best friends. I mean, like, I'm out there and I'm at conventions. I know a lot of people and all that stuff. And like I said, I'm out there and I will advocate for Roy and that stuff. And I have a lot of enemies because there's some people, I'll tell you this right now. I do good business. And a lot of promoters, especially in the Northeast, a lot of promoters like to finagle things, and they'll say like, I'll give you this if they give me this, if you give me this. And I never, ever, ever have ever done that. And now I'm hard to do business with. We have our contract. This is what it is. Respect Roy, and we'll be at your show.
Yeah.
We do it to the end. That's how it is. But I do get some pushback for that, because then they say, oh, he's hard to do business with. I'm not hard to do business with, and they know this. And I know all those guys because I grew up with a lot of those guys. And now they don't like the fact that I'm out there and I'm still doing it. I'm in these Stanley biographies. I'm pretty well known. I'm in a lot of these clippings. I'm in the Hollywood Reporter, yada, yada, yada. I should be staying in the background. The truth is, Roy wants me in the front with him. Roy loves when I'm with him because we're best friends. He doesn't want to hide me from anybody. And if I remember, ultimately, I'll do what Roy says. Sometimes I'll be like, no, Roy, you just go out there. You do it because they want to see you. No, I want you to do the Q&A with me. I want you to do this. Get on this. That's how it is. And then, there's a lot of that feedback. Oh, he's trying to take the limelight, or he's manipulating.
No, John, you're a damn good wingman. That's what's going on here.
I'm the boy to the boy. I'm not like I'm like the son like that. Listen, I love the bottom line is, like I said, I'm just a fan. I'm in this remarkable position. I get to go all over the world. I get to see these fans, and I get to live this dream life that was very tough to get to, mind you. I mean, I'm not no spring chicken. I've worked all these crazy jobs. I've been a laborer. I've done trash. I've done landscaping. I've done it all. I used to put masonry, like bricks, in the sewer systems. I've had all these. I didn't just get here on a whim. I worked hard to get there, and by doing that, and I was able to succeed. And I made these guys get the money they deserve. And now other creators would come to me and ask me questions. Oh, how can we do this? How can we do that? And I don't like to pat myself on the back, but I've done a lot of innovative things. And Marvel even took an idea from me, and now other creators are using it. And it was a funny thing is I can't say, I got to still play the game. But I'll tell you this. I go to Chris Claremont and I said, Chris, this is my idea. Marvel took that from me. And he goes, welcome to the club. They did it to all of us.
There you go. John, thank you for this. I really appreciate it. It's good talking to you.
Thank you.
Definitely want to do it in person sometime. Let me know when
absolutely.
You're going to be out here in Southern California. Let's get together.
Absolutely.
All righty. Let me ask people, follow Roy, follow Gerry, right? They have presences on the web. And
let me just say you can join the Roy Thomas Appreciation Board on Facebook, or the Gerry Conway Appreciation Board on Facebook. Those are their actual social media, where that's where you can contact. I will let you in. And Gerry does have an Instagram. Roy's on the farm. Don't worry. I get
Roy's wonderful farm out there. All those animals. Yeah. Okay. I also want to ask people again if you like this interview, say so. Hit that like button, subscribe to it, and share it with other people. Because let's get word out there about Roy and Gerry and John. And
Bolerjack,
and we'll call it a night. Have a good weekend, John. Thank you so much for being here again. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate
It's been an honor. It's been an absolute honor, Dennis. Thank you so much.
Okay. Good night.